This episode is brought to you by Cool Story Club. Do you know it takes 1/3 of a pound of chemicals to grow enough cotton just for one shirt? Cool Story Club is a Calgary-based, responsibly produced kids clothing catering to kids at play. Their mission is to provide the highest quality in kids fashion without compromising on style. All the pieces are locally handmade with love and made from ethical source bamboo cotton, which makes them both luxuriously soft and durable. You can check out their Instagram at Cool Story Club or go to www.coolstorykids.com to order your pieces just in time for the holidays.
Oh, that's a cool story, bro.
Thanks, bro.
You are now tuned in to Hard as a Mother spin-off show, The Dope Dad Collective. Just FYI, we're still workshopping that title. We got a couple things in the oven that's cooking right now. What are those options, Albert? I think we're doing Do-Rag Dads. We like that.
Sneaker Dads YYC.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think we just got the two options. Yeah. So we are Arjay and Albert, your resident dope dads. It's been a while since we filmed an episode, eh?
Yeah, I think 4 months now, 3 months now.
Shout out to the other dope dads. You'll see more of them on future shows, but for this episode, it's going to be me and Albert.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So our guest today is Adam Ryan. Holy shit, man. 2 first names, eh? Nice.
Middle name's Kevin, too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really? Your parents got a book and was like most popular kids' names, so like we'll pick all 3. He's an entrepreneur, professional day trader, and single dad to his 8-year-old son, Noah, whom he gained full custody of when he was just 18 months old. For as long as he could remember, Adam has always wanted to be a father, and that wish came true for him on his birthday in April 2013. He's been loving fatherhood ever since. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
Sweet. So why don't you have a pretty unique story as far as being a single father. Why don't you tell us about your story?
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I had a son when I was 26 with my girlfriend at the time, and I guess things go like they go sometimes, and they didn't really work out, and we kind of parted ways, and just the way it ended up was that I was the primary caregiver, and went through a little bit of a battle for that, and then he was like 18 months old in diapers and all that. She just couldn't be there like for him, like what he needed at the time, so I was just forced to step up and do what I had to do.
So full transparency, we have mutual friends. Like a lot of my little cousins are your friends, and we know all the same people. So your friends aren't the greatest people in the world. So even at your age right now, at 35, there's still a bunch of shitbags. But like at 26,
wow, this guy gets right to it.
I'm just saying, right?
We go raw.
Yeah.
Right? Like at 26, I could only imagine what you would be surrounded by with your peers, right? And then being the responsible one and having an 18-year-old to yourself, 18-month-old to yourself. Like that's crazy. Like how do you do that at 26?
Yeah, so like what you said is right. All my friends were partying, drinking still. Yeah, still there's, a large group of friends who are still doing that today. Yeah. Excuse me. But pretty much, like, I always wanted to be a dad. I remember even younger, like when I was like 14, for some reason, it was strange. Like I couldn't tell my friends because, my friends, right? They would just clown on me the whole time, right? But I had this something in me where I wanted to be a father. So when it came the time, I just knew that I had to step up. And I was living that whole lifestyle too, partying every weekend and all that. But when it came time where it was either I let him go in a bad direction where I could have seen things go, or I step up and take care of him, I just had to do it. So
nice, man. Were you pretty much on your own? Like, were you have a place by yourself, or you staying with your parents? Or
yeah, so I bought a house like 6 months or 8 months before. When I found out that she was pregnant, I was like, whoa, I gotta get my stuff in line here. Like,
good for you, bro.
And stuff. Yeah. So I bought my first house at 26, like just before he was born. Yeah. So I had that. But yeah, I was just living like that. But it was a struggle because I was also like a new entrepreneur and like a new career and everything. And like things were going good at the beginning. Like, you get sometimes that like beginner's luck or whatever. And then you get to the real world where it's just like this is way harder than I thought. So yeah, I went through a lot of tough times in the beginning.
And at 26 though, you don't fully know yourself either, right?
No.
Like I thought I knew myself at 21, or no, I'll say 18. I thought I knew myself, and then at 21, I was like, no, that's not me. Then at 24, it was like another change. 24, 25, and then 26. You kind of grew up fast.
Yeah, I had no choice, right? And the thing is, like, a lot of people look at my situation like, oh man, you had it so tough, like it was so hard. But I never really one time was like, oh, it's so tough, it's so hard, because you just got to do it. So I was so busy doing it that I didn't have time to really be like, oh, poor me, like this is so hard, like all my friends are out doing this, and I'm like, dude, I just had to do it. So it was like kind of good that I didn't really have too much time to
That's good,
think
man.
about how tough it was. Yeah.
Because like just thinking about that, like the first thing that pops in my mind is FOMO, right? Like fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Because I know at that time your friends were traveling the world, going to parties, going to raves, and doing all of this other stuff, and you were at home being a dad. That's commendable, man. Good for you. That's crazy.
Thank you.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about your business as well? Like you said, at that time you were newly an entrepreneur, right? You bought your first house at 26 or 6 months before that. Like that's crazy. Like, I mean, for me personally, like we bought our house at 27, but it was me and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. But even then, like my dad had to kick me in the pants. He's like, buddy, you got to do something with your life, right?
Yeah.
So, what is your career path if you're still doing it right now?
Yeah, so I've been day trading full time for the last 12 years. In January, it'll be the 12th year. I trade crude oil, so that was what I was doing. And at the beginning, I had a lot of success with that. And then there's so much to learn with trading in the markets that you think you got it, and then it pulls it out from you. Then you think you get it again, and then it pulls it out. And it takes many years before you actually get it. So that's what I was doing. I was doing the trading business. Like I opened a corporation, I was trading out of that.
Yep.
And then I have another business on the side where I teach people how to do it as well.
Okay.
So how to just like read market structure, price action, so they can trade as a career.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, but the business part wasn't really much there. It was just my first initial success. And then I bought the house after that.
Crazy. Man, we were buying sneakers.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think at 26, like
Countdown packs.
I was like, yeah, I was buying sneakers, like to just hear about the story of, you had no choice, right? And I do commend you for saying like, you were just doing it, because at a point, even when I became a dad, like I became a dad 2 years ago and I'm only 31. But even at that point, for myself as an entrepreneur, like you can't think about anything else anymore. It's about moving up. Like, okay, so I have this person that I have to take care of, and understanding that you can't just sit there and be like, oh shit, this isn't working out for me, and then feel sorry for yourself, because there's no time for that anymore, right? You got to make sure your child is taken care of, and making sure that they have everything that they need to survive, and even to think just at like 18 months, I'm thinking about my son right now at 18 months and how much he still needed his mom at that time, so to
imagine if with Carter at his age right now and it was just you two.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, man.
And then to think like you're still a kid at that age. Like I think about 26-year-olds now and I look at them like, yo, you guys are still like babies. I don't know if that's just like old man talk, but it's just like you look at kids now and some of them, it just seems like all they want to do, is just go out and party and stuff. And you try to talk to them about reality, and it's like, I'll get there when I get there.
It's weird because like people always say that kids grow up faster in today's age because of technology and everything else, right? But then also at the same time, there's this certain point in your life, like in your 20s, where you're allowed to fuck up a lot more than when we were allowed to fuck up when we were younger, right? So it's like you definitely grow up faster, but then you get to this point where you slow down, like at the tail end of your 20s, where everyone's just like, don't rush it. You got your entire life ahead of you and all this other shit, right?
Yeah, and that's why we have like man-child, right? Or
Yeah.
like 30,
Peter
40,
Pan syndrome.
Yeah, they're still living like kids in their parents' basement playing video games all day.
Yeah.
So I can feel that too. We do have that where it's like they grow up so quick because technology is giving them so much access to unlimited knowledge. Yeah. But then as they grow up further and further, they're just still
kids, man.
Yeah, still kids. Right?
Yeah, that's for sure. So you mentioned that you because you had to be in that moment. You didn't have enough time to look around and be like, oh, what am I missing out on, et cetera, et cetera. But also at the same time, like, what did you do to take time for yourself? Like, did you do anything for your own mental health, for your own self-care?
Yeah, I guess pretty much the only things I could do, like at the very beginning when he was that 18-month phase, there was no time for nothing. Like when he took a nap is when I would like work out or like, you know, try to do some kind of fitness or whatever. Or sometimes he took a nap, I got to take a nap too, right? Because I'm exhausted. So there wasn't much time to do much of that. But I guess I just found what really helped me through it was probably like just being in touch with my faith, which is I'm a Christian. So that kind of helped me like rely on God during that time. And that's all I can say how I did it. Because when I look back on it, I'm like, how could I even do that? It doesn't make sense. It's like he's 18 months in diapers and bottles, right? Still taking naps. So I'm just pretty shocked that I could even get through that whole time. But I didn't really do much until later when as he got older, it just kept getting easier and easier and easier to like actually have time for myself. But at the beginning, there wasn't really time for myself.
So now, like nowadays, what do you? Like, he's 8 years old now, right? Clearly, he's kind of have. He clearly has like his own schedule and his own friends and whatnot. So that must free up a lot of time for yourself, right? Like, what do you do to, especially like in these days where with pandemic and everything else going on, what do you do to keep sane?
To keep sane, pretty much just try to see friends somewhat. But I also have like a business and I'm trading as well. Spend time with the family, like try to make sure that my fitness is important when I'm still working out. Like,
bro, you're yoked, man. Look at you.
In that gym, you know, lifting those weights, right?
Nice.
Yeah, so that just keeps me sane. And I do a lot of like, I don't know, kind of like I take time to not really meditate, but like take time to slow down and
self-reflect.
Yeah, self-reflect. And then, I'm spiritual, so I take time with the Lord as well. And that kind of helps me.
Nice.
As well.
So do you take any of those like life lessons that you learned as far as monitoring your mental health, keeping up with your faith? Is that something that's important to you to teach your son?
Yeah, it is important. I haven't really taught him too much about it yet, but I do realize that he needs to happen. It was just weird that you say that because just yesterday he got into his first little like almost like bullying thing, where it was like, because they're now online and they're Zoom and now they meet with their friends and they go on Zoom and play games and stuff. And his one friend was coming in the game and just like, he was 3 kids, right? And they wanted to play cooperatively together. And this one friend just came and was just killing him every time, right? So they respawn, come back, and the guy just kills him again. They're like, why did you kill him? He's like, it's an accident. But he just kept killing him anyways, right? So he's so upset. So he's like, okay, me and this other kid are just going to go and play together, right? And then they went to play, and then this kid got so upset. So he's like blowing up the phone and like just keep calling him, leaving all these messages. And then I went through the messages and I was like, whoa, this is like kind of hurtful stuff. Like saying you're like, you know, and then putting like trash can emojis and like just like, you know, bullying stuff where I was like, man, this is like pretty tough, right? So it was important to me. And then when I looked through the messages, I just seen what he was saying. He's like, you're so mean. And it was like, he doesn't have siblings. And like, I'm so soft on him and easy on him. Like I have discipline with him, but I think he's just like just a nice kid, right? So it's like it's not like when we were kids where it's like if somebody calls you something, then you
got to push back.
Yeah, you have to do something, right?
Someone hits you hit them back.
Yeah, he's like, but I got to still be polite, and I was like, oh, it's tough because I'm not going to tell him to go there and like whoop the kid or something, right? But it's like you don't want this to happen to your kid, so it was like the first kind of little lesson I had to tell him about like how to handle the situation, and that usually people who are hurt others, right? And he's probably feeling hurt that you left him out of the game, but you did nothing wrong. Like you explained it to him several times. If you kept coming in and killing us, we're trying to be cooperative, then we're not going to play, right? And to let him know that it's okay to not play with every kid. Like you're not forced to be nice to every kid, right? Like you want to be friendly, but if somebody's disrespecting you and they're not going to, you know, be nice to you, then you got to stand up for yourself, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know you mentioned, you know, the way you grew up and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, at the age of 14, you said you had a dream of being a dad. Because I had the same dream too. I think I was like 13, 14. I woke up one day and I just said, shit, I want to be a fucking dad, you know? But it's the same thing. You don't tell your boys. I don't know if, you know, you told your family about it at your age, but I kind of just want to go back to, you know, what was kind of like your upbringing like? Like what made you want to be a dad? You know, did you grow up with siblings? Did you Did you see an older brother or something where you thought like, oh, he's like a great dad, like I want to be like that, or I want to be like my dad?
Yeah, for me, so I grew up with three brothers, right? I got two older brothers and a younger brother, and grew up with mom and dad in the same house and everything. But I think for me, it was just that my dad worked a lot. Like he worked like 7 days a week, and both my parents are entrepreneurs. So they're both like, I'm happy that they gave me a lot of lessons. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm sure I learned a lot from them. But when I remember being younger, like my dad wasn't always around so much. He was around a lot. He still came to my hockey, but I remember playing hockey, looking up at the stands a lot, trying to see if he was there. And he wasn't there a lot of the time. So I was like, when I have my kid, he's going to look up, he's going to see me every time. 100%. Right. So I don't miss anything. But I think I wanted to be a father at a young age because there was just a little something missing there where, like, not to say that he wasn't a good dad or anything, just I wanted more of him. And I think that kind of made me want to be a dad, like give what you didn't get kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah, it's like whatever your parents gave you is there's always a cap to kind of what your parents can give you, and then you always want to, outdo your parents in a way. Yep. Like there's like a maximum of what a parent can do at a point where you always want to make sure whatever you didn't have, you want to make sure your kids have and stuff.
Yeah, like they do the best with what they have, but every generation should strive to be better. Like you shouldn't be like, I'm going to be exactly like them. Like they do things well, they do things not well. You want to take the good, ditch the bad, and keep improving. So that's basically, like you said, what I tried to do.
Yeah. And then you mentioned growing up with your brothers. So, being a single dad, was that, did that help you out in any way with growing up with some brothers as well? Did they help out or anything, or?
Mostly my parents helped out. Like my parents were amazing. Like they would, like, since he was like days old, my mom would come over and she would even like take him sometimes for a little bit. So if it wasn't for them, like, I don't know where I'd be, because they were the only one who gave me a break. Like on some weekends I would drop him there, and then, some weekends you can obviously, but my parents helped me out the most. Yeah.
Is your son's mother still involved in his life in any aspect?
Yeah, she's involved. Like she lives in Toronto now,
oh.
So she's not like too involved, but she sees him here and there. Like she was seeing him every week.
Okay.
But then she moved to Toronto, so that's limited now.
So you guys are in good terms.
Yeah, we're in good terms. Like we talk and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's really key and important for families that, or parents that separate, is that they still focus on the kid, and that's a big buzzword these days, is co-parenting, right? You gotta make sure that the priority is the kid, and you throw all the rest of that shit aside and make sure you're on the same page, and parenting wise, you guys can work together to give your kid the best thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, so again, I know you mentioned your parents and how like they would take them every so often to help you give a break and stuff as well. But also, you being an entrepreneur, was there such thing as a break? Like, do you know your stress levels and when you really need to just like, I need you guys to take my kid, I need to just go for a run or something, or go to the gym? Like, were there points as an entrepreneur and as a parent, as a dad, a single dad, where you just, you feel like giving up on shit? Like,
yeah, I don't know if ever I've had a feeling of giving up. Like, I just have a will to win, like so deep that I don't get the feeling to give up, but I do feel defeated where I'm like, oh, I want to quit. But then it snaps out of it shortly after. But there was so many times where I have to drop them off on the weekends and I got to work 18 hours. I don't have that time to chill, right? And especially when I'm trying to make it so bad and everybody's like telling me, you can't do this, you don't have the education, like look where you come from. Everybody's telling me I can't do it, so I want to prove them wrong. So I would drop them off, and like literally sometimes I'd work till 7 a.m. and then take a sleep and then work another 10, 12 hours. So there wasn't always that time. But yeah, I probably, hurt my mental health a bit to just keep grinding like that with not much help. But yeah.
Well, the thing I hear from your voice is the passion, right? Like when you have the passion for something, it doesn't feel like work.
That's
right?
true.
That 18 hours can go like that when you're doing something that you love and you're motivated towards a goal, right? What else drives you? Like you seem like a very highly motivated person. Like what drives you to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so the primary driver is probably my son. Like, he's the one who helped me turn everything around. Like, I remember when I finally like made it as a trader, I thought, and I bought the house, all this, everything is going good. And then boom, it like went so far down. And at 2 years old, I was like thinking about schools. I wanted to put him in a certain school, and it was a private school. So I had to pay for it. And I was like in debt. I was struggling, had no money. So I'd have a bad day, and I'd literally drive to the school, and I would park there, and I would just visualize him going to that school, and it would get me jacked up, and then I'd go back home and work. So he's probably the driving force of most of the things I do.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Have with your own mental health, so you kind of know what your limits are and stuff. And I know you talked about Noah kind of having not like a breakdown yesterday, but kind of just going through his first stage of the whole bullying kind of thing. But what about for self-care? Is that something that you teach your son or you open up to him about of like taking time? Because growing up, I never really, like for me, and I don't know about RJ, but, I wasn't really told to take time for myself.
Oh.
It was just like, you're fine. Yeah. And it's like, again, like talking about our parents, like they only knew so much, especially for like us that, our parents immigrated here. Everything is always good. Everything, our kids are happy. They have a house, they have food, they have this, and this. There's no reason for them to be feeling this type of way or going through these type of emotions. But when it comes to a child growing up, and even like myself with my 2-year-old, I see him going through a bunch of emotions, and right now he's trying to regulate them. And sometimes he doesn't know what he's doing, because like he'll get so mad that he'll just like throw his toy across the room, or like we'll be doing something and he's annoyed with whatever's happening, and he just starts hitting things because he can't fully regulate it yet. But no, being that your son now is 8 years old, is there things that you kind of teach him about taking a break from, say, the video games? Like your friend is really pissing you off, like, walk away. Or, there's a situation at school where your homework's really piling up on you. Is there a time where you had to, kind of just put your arm around him and just say like, it's cool to just take a break? Like, yeah, you do get a feeling where like I quit, but then, you have to snap out of it. You can't just kind of be in that feeling for too long.
Yeah, I don't think I like tried to do it, but sometimes it would just work out where that would happen, like where I would just take them aside. And first, like when they're so young, they can't regulate their emotions, or sometimes they don't even know what the emotion is. So I would try to be like, hey, what are you feeling? Like, are you feeling whatever, like sad, happy, whatever, to try to see if he would be like, oh, this and that, or, oh, I know this must have hurt you because that happened, and try to get him to like open up. And like, I'm not a professional at this, right? So I mean, I should probably try to learn much more, but like with being an entrepreneur and all this and raising him and everything, like I haven't spent as much studying as I probably should have. But from the things that I know, I just try to do that, and hopefully he'll be better than me and do more with his kid, right?
Man,
but
I think you're in a good path right now, because like I know for a fact that like a lot of good entrepreneurs, a lot of good leaders, a key skill set is being a good listener, right? And sometimes that's all kids need. Right, because you can sit there and be like, how do you feel about this? How did that make you feel? How would you handle it differently? An 8-year-old kid's not going to know at that moment, right?
That's
like,
true.
You know what I mean? So sometimes you just got to let them go off and be like, oh, Bradley's a poopy head or whatever it is, right? Yeah, especially with video games. And like my son's big into Fortnite. Same thing, right? Like, oh, Julian's doing this and Kai's doing that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, take a break. Go play a different game, man. You don't need to be playing this game all the time. Do something else, right? Like, just take a step back and take a breather. You're not going to go back to school the next day and be like, we're no longer friends because you tore down my tower on a video game, right? Like, it's ridiculous.
And it kind of all goes towards the whole, toxic masculinity. That's kind of like a word that's been popping up a lot now in this generation. But like, I'm not going to speak on you guys, but for me, again, going back to regulating your feelings, you can't feel like this. You can't be sad, or, having a safe space to open up and just being like, hey, Dad, I'm feeling this type of way. Because there are times, like even now, like sometimes I'll open up to my dad and like I'll just feel like, fuck, am I being a pussy right now? Like,
100%,
you know what I
man.
mean? But it's at the same time, it's like, fuck, I just need some advice. Yeah. And now that I'm a dad and my dad sees it, like my dad's very open, and I didn't know this, but I just thought like my dad was just really tough guy, so I was like, I can't be like, hey dad, like I feel this type of way, you know.
Let me talk to you about my feelings, Dad.
Yeah, so like, you know, is that something also that you have talked about, or is it kind of just something that you just show? Because like for me, I don't talk about the toxic masculinity with him, but I just show him that, you know, I'm a sensitive dude, but I might look like I might go beat your ass up or something. But at the same time, like if I feel like if I see you sad, I'm gonna be sad with you. If I see you, you know, struggling, like I'm gonna struggle with you because I want you to feel that type of way and be safe about feeling that type of way.
Yeah, I haven't really like talked to him about that, about toxic masculinity or anything. But I've told him like, yeah, it's okay to be sad. Like if he gets hurt, it's okay to be hurt. Like, but I have a conversation with him, like the difference between like, maybe I'm wrong about this, I don't know, but when it's okay to cry and when it's not okay to cry. Like, you know, if something happens on your toy and like, you know, you can't put your sock on, like you don't break out because your sock's like not getting on, right? If you're hurt, like emotionally or physically, you know, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be hurt, but I just don't want some baby who's just screaming 100%. All day long, right? So
yeah, it's like stubbing your toe and trying not to like cry. And you're just like, I'm good.
My wife gets so mad because like ever since their kids were small, I gave them one rule: the only time you can cry is if you're dying or you're bleeding. And if you don't hit either one of those two criteria, you gotta shut the fuck up and just power through it. And I know it sounds horrible or whatever, but like, yeah, when someone hurts their feelings or whatever, I'm not gonna be like, suck it up, pussy. Like this is one of those moments. I want to put my arm around my kid and be like, hey, you want to talk about it? You want to tell me whatever, blah blah blah. But like, yeah, same thing. If they lose in a game of 21 and the kid starts crying, that is not the moment to start crying, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not. I don't think it's toxic masculinity, but it's like knowing how to manage your emotions.
There's a balance.
Yeah,
like there's a balance with everything, right? You can't, you know, always ride the fucking positive wave. That's impossible to do, you know. And
I hate those people.
I was just gonna say, I've met people that are like, you know, and bless their hearts, they're super positive and stuff. But you can't tell me you don't go home and you fucking want to punch a wall.
Yeah.
Right, you can't. You don't have to put that facade on all the time of, you know, Instagram. You're not Instagram in real life, right? And you know, I'm sure a lot of people, even with you, might see that, you know, you've raised your son for 8 years on your own, even with his mom being present and stuff. But you know, with you taking most of it, people can't just assume like, oh yeah, life is dandy for you guys. Like, oh yeah, you're a successful entrepreneur, day trader. Oh yeah, you guys are fine. You got all the money you need and stuff. But they don't see like what you were talking about, going to the school and just sitting there visualizing. Like as much debt you had, you were just thinking like, fuck, like Noah's gonna make it to the school, and he's gonna be successful in whatever he's gonna do. Right? There's always like the behind the scenes as being a parent.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is when I started having like more help, somebody to help me with him, I took a lot of things for granted. Like when you're a single dad, like you take a lot of things for granted. Like when you have two people, you come home, you forgot something from the grocery store, it's bedtime. Oh, I'll just go get this. You put him to bed, right? Where it's like, oh no, we ain't getting this now because I gotta put him to bed, right?
Yeah.
So having someone around, there's just little things that was like, wow, this feels so good. Or, oh, you're gonna put him to bed tonight? It's like, I'm gonna like, you know, I took a lot of things for granted, right? So now I just see that, you know, it was pretty hard to do it, but at the time I didn't think it was so hard. But yeah, it's just little things.
Do you ever feel sorry for yourself?
No, never. You know, this is what made me. You know, that's why I'm like, I wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for my situation. No way, I wouldn't be this ambitious and motivated. So I'm happy. Like it made me who I am.
That's good, man. Like, me personally, a lot of people make a lot of excuses, right? Childhood trauma, toxic masculinity, whatever, blah blah blah. Man, like my mom called me fat when I was 12. Doesn't affect me when I'm 35 and I missed a meeting, right? I'm not gonna be like, oh, I missed this meeting because my mom fucking called me fat when I was 12 or whatever, right? Like, take responsibility for yourself, right? Know that you're gonna face hardships, right? And those hard moments, they don't have to break you. They can make you better. You can look back at those moments and be like, I'm now better right now where I am because of those moments, right? Exactly. And those moments may have sucked. They may have sucked, but they're fleeting, right? They come and they go. They come and they go. So
I just, in my head, I laugh because when you said My mom called me fat when I was 12. Did that, and I missed a meeting. Like, yeah, I played a fucking factor.
Well, no, but like too many people these days are saying, "Oh, my childhood trauma is affecting me to this day." I'm like, how is it affecting you now? Like,
Bro,
Well, childhood trauma can affect you deeply, right?
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
If you've had like a parent who was like neglectful
Yeah.
and never showed you love, right? You might not be able to feel like you're worthy in a relationship. And you might
100%.
like
Yeah.
certain things can affect you. But to be replaying that tape
Exactly.
every day
Hell
over and
yeah.
over,
You know what?
gotta eventually be like, I'm responsible for my life.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
and
make a change.
there are times where I've heard things or seen things online or through people, but the first time I heard it, yeah, you know what? I totally get it. I get your trauma. But again, it is like repeating, like, oh shit, sorry I'm late.
Yeah.
My dad 10 years ago fucking called me ugly.
Yeah.
Like there are moments like I have childhood trauma, I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you do. And like we've all had to work at it ourselves, but that's the thing, we all worked at it. But there comes a point too where you have to like stop.
Yeah.
Just like shut the fuck up, put your head down, do the work, and stop complaining about shit. And
But you know what? To bring it full circle, it's like we were talking about stubbing your toe and crying, right? Yeah, you stubbed your toe. It sucks, right? But you don't need to cry, right? Look, like going back to something as an anchor, and it's like this is like root cause of all my problems. Yeah, for the most part, it could possibly be, but like there's some things that you just did them because you were shitty that day, right? We're allowed to mess up. We're allowed to slip up every now and then. You don't always have to point to that one thing and saying that's what made me evil. That's what made me bad, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, if you don't take responsibility for something, you can never change it. If you always have an excuse, then what you're saying is it's okay, and I don't have to do this. Like, if as soon as you take responsibility, know that I have the power to change it, you can change it. But if you keep saying I'm late because of this, then you're never going to be on time, right? Because you have this always holding you down.
it's like saying you're gonna start your diet or your workout
Shut the fuck
on
up,
Monday.
man. I'm going to start on Monday. Hey, Gino, I know you're watching this. I will start on Monday.
I'm gonna start after a couple of weeks.
It's like if it was serious enough, you'd start right now.
If
Because
you want
what's
it.
the difference between Monday? I've said that millions of times too, right? Like I'm going to start on Monday, but if you really want something, then it's like you're going to do it right now.
No
today.
excuses.
Speaking of starting now, okay, so so this is kind of to both of you, but I still remember the feeling of when my son came out, like when he was born, and like everything in my mind rushed all at once. Like I still have some debt, I have this, I have that, I got to do this with my business, I got to make sure my wife is okay and taken care of. All these things like rush through your head, but at that single moment, it was like life changed, but it was just a snap. Like, you guys still remember that feeling, especially for you, because you've had 2 kids, right? Like, did that happen to you twice, or did that,
No.
was it like the first one and you're like, yo, life is...
You know what? I've always been a positive person. Shitty things happen, and I just keep it moving, and almost to a fault, because then I'll totally neglect things I actually have to do. Right? Just like you guys, though, I always knew I wanted to be a father. So, 27, when my at the time girlfriend tells me she's pregnant and she's expecting me to be a certain type of way, I'm like, cool, I'm all in. Let's do this, right? So when the kids came, it was like happiest day of my life. Then my son came, happiest day of my life, right? I never had that snap to it moment where I had to be responsible. Funny thing is, I had that a couple of years ago, where I was just overworked. I was partying a lot. I was turning to drinking a lot. And that was for me, that was a big moment where I had to kind of snap into place and be like, I just can't keep moving in this direction if I want to be the person that I need to be for my family, right? Talking about how, like, your dad used to go to your hockey games and you look at your stand and hope he was there, right? For me, I was the same thing. My dad, and I think your dad as well too, their biggest thing was being providers, making sure we had everything that we needed because they had far less than we did. Now, for me as a father, my big thing is being present. I've been a stay-at-home dad for the past 2 years while still working, and I love it. I take my kids to the bus stop, to school. I take them to basketball practice. I take them wherever. And for me, that's the big thing, is that they're always going to have these memories where, yeah, maybe we didn't have everything, but my dad was there, right? Like, he was there for afternoon cartoons. He was there for my first tournament. He was there for practices, all that stuff. Like, for me, I can't put a price tag on that.
Ooh, that's so huge. Like
Yeah.
I once dated a girl who her dad was like a multimillionaire, like very wealthy. They had maids, lived in a mansion. And she told me that she would have rather had her dad there and just be like okay than have everything that she had. She just wanted him around. So what you're doing is huge. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. And the word that I picked up on, because me and Saniza talk about this all the time, is memories. Yeah. Like I have memories with my parents. Like, you know, again, they did everything they could to provide for myself and even my siblings. But the memories is like
priceless.
Because I want Carter to just like one day be like, oh yeah, I remember going to blah 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 with mom and dad, and like I felt this type of way. Because, you know, when you make them feel that type of way, it kind of just builds down that generation. You know, whatever generational traumas we've had, like he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to see it, but he can kind of see, like, remember all the good stuff, so he can, you know, level up himself as a parent, because he'll see how we were and be like, oh shit, like my parents did this, I want to do this, because then it just builds better people at the end of the day, right?
And not everything needs to be a formal lesson where you're sitting down going, hey, here's the lesson I need you to learn from this situation. Sometimes it's just living through it, right? Just, you know, playing board games or going on vacation, like putting your phone away for half an hour and just being present with one another. That's a lesson you don't need to teach your kids, because they're living it, and that for them it becomes their norm. Like this is what is normal to us, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I don't think I gave you an opportunity to answer Albert's question.
But yeah, back to the question though. That was really good stuff though. But
so touching.
But I did have a moment like that. I remember, because I was a little bit like, at the time, kind of worried too, because my career is like a very unique career where it's like, it's not every day you go into the office and like you don't perform and say, you know, we're actually deducting your paycheck this time because you didn't perform. Well, my job, it's like I can make money, but I can lose money. Like they can take it away. So that, being a newer trader, obviously had some worry when I went in there, and then like I had some debt at the time too. Right. And then like just bought the house. And like when he came out, I remember that moment. Like they asked me if I wanted to cut the umbilical cord. I was like, yeah, I went right in there, cut that cord. I had him. And like I held him, and he was opening his eyes, and he was trying to open it, but it was so bright. And I still remember it. And his eyes were gray. It looked like a wolf. And I was just like, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to take care of you. And this is going to be a good life. Like, and I remember like that feeling, and it was like crazy.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is because, so my son was born 2019 in October. So me and my wife, we got married in August of 2018. And November of 2018, I was working for the State Student Association. And it just wasn't working out for me anymore with the manager at the time. And I literally just said, fuck this, I quit during a meeting. And I stood up and like walked out. And I was like, take this as my oral, like, what's that word when you quit? What? I was like, take this as like my oral resignation.
Yeah, you just said oral, and I said pause.
Take this as my oral resignation, but I fucking quit. And I stood up because we had a one-on-one meeting, and we were at a coffee shop at SAIT. And I stood up, and I fucking walked out, took all my shit, threw it in my backpack. But I had to stay for 14 days, right? You still have to stay for the 14 days. But I cleared everything out. I wanted people to know that, like,
you're done.
Yo, fuck this, I'm out. You know, like, this has been such a negative experience. But shout out to them, because it was actually a great experience, because I became a great dad because of it. But come January of 2019, my wife tells me, like, yo, I'm pregnant. And we were trying. Like, the day we got married, we were trying already. But then in December, when we saw my cousin in 2018, he's like, yo, quit trying. Like, it'll happen. If you stop trying, it'll happen. So we took his advice, and then next thing you know, we're pregnant in January. And in my head, I'm like, hey, I got 9 months. Like, I can be a millionaire in 9 months. I'll make this shit work. But it wasn't until the day he was born. I didn't get to cut the umbilical cord because he couldn't breathe, so they had to do something right away. But I remember seeing him on that like the table with the heat, and just like staring at him, and I was just like, holy shit. Like, again, you can't quit. There's no complaining anymore. There's no, like, oh, this isn't working out. Like, everything will fucking work out. You got to make that shit work. You got to figure out how to do it. But it was just like at that moment when when I finally held him too, where I was just like, okay, like, there are bigger things in life now than what you were worried about before. right? And it was like you work extra hard for that. You do what you got to do to get that shit rolling.
Yeah.
For sure.
Fucking oral.
You know what? I do remember something when my daughter was born, Sophia. So they bring her out, they clean her out, they put like a toque on her, and they hand her over to me. I think the same thing. I couldn't cut the umbilical cord. Also gross. So they hand me Sophia, and I look at her, and the nurse is like, "What are you thinking?" And I'm thinking she's got super chinky eyes, man, and I'm not Chinese, and my wife's not Chinese. I'm like, what's going on here?
This is my baby.
I'm pretty sure I posted something on social media, and someone was just like, "Did you really just ask the world that?"
You fucking idiot.
But she is mine. She is mine. I double checked. We're good.
I need you to lick this swab real quick. So, with you mentioning that, you know, both your parents are entrepreneurs and you're an entrepreneur, so you kind of saw what they did, and of course it kind of instilled something in you. But was there something you wish your own dad do growing up to help you prepare for society and to focus on too much on what the fact that men shouldn't be sensitive? Like, was your dad a very, you know, again, going back to toxic masculinity, did he tell you you couldn't cry and all that kind of stuff? But were there things that he also helped you with to develop as a father you are today and as a person in general?
Yeah, like he gave me a lot of good lessons, right? So a lot of his lessons and like a lot of my drive comes from him and my mom. So like I want to thank them for that too. But there's a lot of lessons that I didn't get, especially when it comes to like just like the mental game and stuff like that and how to think. Like I didn't learn anything like that from them. Like I had to read many books to kind of learn that, and like positive thinking as well and like that kind of stuff that I didn't get. But when it came to like performing and drive, I got all that from him. Like my earliest lesson, I remember I had my first job at 12 years old and I was sweeping the shop. And he's like, as soon as you're done this, you can go home. So, of course, I finished in like 30 minutes. I came out, I'm like, I'm done. He's like, what, you're done? And then he takes me back there and he starts ripping apart my whole job. He's like, you didn't clean this, you didn't clean under here. He's like, look at the machines, you didn't even clean under. I'm like, well, why do I need to clean under them? Nobody's going under the machines. So
that's exactly what I would say too.
Yeah, so he's like, no, he took me aside and he's like, listen, whenever you get a job, you don't want to just do what people expect. You want to do more and better than what your boss expects, right? So I was like, and that stuck with me even from 12 years old. So I always aim to do like better, right? So there's stuff like that in life and business that they've helped me out with. But as far as like manhood, I didn't really have that. Like my dad was like a military man. Like he went in the army at 17, right? So he was like, you know, like my uncles and stuff, we shake hands, right? It's like, you got to be, it's like man's man kind of thing, right?
So, like, what if you switched it up on them? What if you just, like...
Because I want to cheat?
Well, now my dad hugs now. Okay, now, ever since the grandchildren came around, like, when my son came around, I was like, who's this guy?
Yeah,
he was
man.
like,
Grandparents
grandpa of the year, right?
They transform,
yeah,
man.
so it's like they get to do everything they didn't do, right? Because he was so busy providing. He was an amazing provider. Like, we got to play hockey. We had all the best clothes, the best equipment, all that stuff that we wouldn't have if he didn't do that. But now that he's a grandpa and he's like more kind of semi-retired, it's like they come in and they do everything, right? So it's good.
I noticed because my sister and my brother, they're both, you know, a lot older than me. My sister's 16 years older. My brother's 14 years older. I'm a whoops. But my sister had a daughter and a son, but they live in New Jersey. So my dad didn't really get to, you know, be around them. Growing up, he would probably see them at least 2 to 3 times a year because, you know, he worked for Air Canada and he was able to fly down there with my mom to see him as much as I could. But I see now, like, you know, you talked about how your dad is like grandpa of the year, but I see like my dad, and that's why it's a little bit more easier to talk to him about shit because he seems like he's softened up a bit. Like my dad was also, you know, he was in the Philippines and he trained the military at PMA and all that kind of stuff. And my dad's always kind of just been like a manly man with me. And then even sometimes I still catch him slipping where I'm like, Dad, you can't say that. Where he'd be like, you don't cry because girls cry. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, bro, chill for a second. But
don't play with the doll, man. You don't want people seeing you play with the doll. Like,
but
don't play with the doll.
It's funny because I'll let my dad know and he like remembers. He's like, oh yeah, I don't want to say that because it'll, you know, make him think some type of way. But I just see my dad now and see how he plays with my son and the way he talks to him and stuff. I'm like, Who are you?
Motherfucker, who are you? Yeah, like I know with my dad, he'll be playing with like Nico, and he'll be like, "Oh, Transformers!" Like, da 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 da. I'm like, where the hell was this when I was a kid, right? Like when I was a kid, I'm like, "Hey, Dad, you want to play?" Blah blah. He's like, "Oh, you want me to play pretend and make believe, right? You want to build a fort and fucking pretend like we're in the army and da da da." I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do." He's
Why
like,
don't I just send you to the army?
"Yeah," he's like, I gotta go to work, man. Fucking play here with your games.
He's like, I bought you a Nintendo for a reason.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yo, and the thing too for me growing up, my siblings are a lot older than me, so I remember up until 8 years old, they all moved out of the house. So technically, I kind of grew up as like an only child kind of thing, right? And my siblings could have been like teenage parents for me. That's pretty much how it was. And even to this day, they still talk to me like I'm a fucking kid.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I'm a fucking grown ass man. I got a kid now. Like, shut the fuck up. But yeah, just seeing my dad, and you know, you just talked about how your dad is like transitioned and changed. It just made me think like my dad just picked up my son this morning. It was like, "Hey Carter, how are you?" Kissed him on the cheek and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you want to kiss me too?
Yeah.
Like,
You could only imagine being like that age and trying to do that to your dad. Your dad's just like, "Stop. I need 2 steps back." Man.
I should, you know what? I'm gonna see my dad later. I should just grab him on the cheek, or grab his cheeks and kiss him on the lips and see what he does.
Oh my!
There's this
Wow,
thing.
that's
There's this thing me and my brother-in-law do in front of his family, and we'll just kiss each other on the cheeks just to watch their reactions. And we're like, "What the fuck are you guys doing right now?" Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'll record that. I'll send it to you later.
What else we got? Okay, this one's a tough one. The ratio of the rates of suicide in Canada have been fairly constant since the 1920s, averaging around 20 males and 5 females per 100,000 people. It's clear that with toxic masculinity being such a prominent force of the media and society, that men are more susceptible to taking their own lives. What can we do in our own friend groups to keep this from happening? If you were in a dark place, how likely are you to open up to your guy friends or girlfriends?
Yeah, I don't think I would open up too much. Like, I mean, I would talk about things, but I never would like air everything, right? I never really felt like anybody came to me either and was like, "Hey man, how are you feeling? Like, how's this kind of going?" Like, I just didn't have anybody to really do that, but I think it is important. Like, if you see a friend and they're like going through a tough time, then you should reach out and try to see, because you never know what somebody's going through, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of tough.
For me, like, I have different friend groups, right? Like, we have our couple friends where it's like me and my wife and our couple friends. And then I have like my work friends, then I got my boys, and then I got like my inner circle where these are the guys I tell everything to. And I think for this question, it's important to have your go-tos, right? Like, you obviously have a bunch of friends, but like, you got to have one guy that you're like, okay, that's my ride or die. This is the guy that if I were ever in a dark place, he's the guy I would talk to, right?
Yeah, like I have that, and it's like I say the stuff freely, but it's like,
But you never do it in like a big group where you're all like out for wings. Be like, "Guys, I had a rough time yesterday."
Going out for drinks.
Yeah.
I don't know, because for me, it's like, the crazy thing is, it's like my mom is like my rock almost, which is just crazy.
That's awesome,
like,
man.
We have such a good relationship. Like, we talk every single day, sometimes multiple times throughout the day, right? And like, when I was in trouble and was just like a bad kid, she was always calling me, like worrying where I was and all this stuff, right? And now she's always calling me, but it's like good, like to like see how I'm doing and all that stuff. So I have her to talk to. So if I'm going through like a really tough time, then I talk to her. Plus, she has a master's in psychology as well as a master's in education. So she's like,
That's wicked.
She can kind of just read you if something's wrong.
yeah. So it's good. She knows me as well too. So
What about you, Albert?
Honestly, that's kind of tough. You know, being like, you know, some of my boys too, and like, I'm the only one out of my whole group that is married and has a baby right now. So there's some stuff where, like, for me, and I said this in the episode where what I did with Ham, where I went through postpartum when we had Carter, and it didn't really hit me until it fucking hit me like a brick wall, because our pregnancy was kind of tough. You know, my wife was bedridden for a bit, and I thought, like, okay, like, I'm the man. I got to take care of Sen, but I also got to make sure when the baby's here, I got to take care of him. Like, there's no time to really, stop and take care of myself because it's already rough. And like, what the fuck, as for me, the way I thought about it is like, I'm not really doing anything. The most I do is give him a bath and change his diaper, but I'm not like staying up with him breastfeeding. I'm not doing this. And I thought at a point too, where I was like, whenever she woke up, I woke up. Whenever she was feeding, like I would stop everything I was doing to, keep her company and stuff. And it even got to a point where she was like, it's okay. Like, I got this. Like, if you want to go work and do whatever, because I work from home too. And I have my own business. So I work everything from home. She would tell me to just like focus on that. But when postpartum hit me, holy shit. Like, I remember my cousin, he was pretty much the only one that I could go to, where I was like, dude, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, I'm mad and I'm sad and I'm all these things. And I told him, I think I'm going through depression right now. And that's when he mentioned the postpartum, which I also knew about too from our birth and babies class. But, if it wasn't for him to kind of just like, dude, like, I'm here to listen to you, but, you have a group of boys, like there's like 3 of my other homies that are, they're not dads, but you just got to let them know, because at that time too, they were seeing me almost like every other day just to kind of just, see how we're doing, bring us food, bring us dinner or whatever. But I didn't say anything, and I was just like fucking dying. But it was at that moment where I was like, yo, like, this is what I'm going through, guys. And I don't know how you can help me. And I'm not asking you to like step out of your way, but I just need you guys to know, because I don't know what's going to happen to me like 6 months from now, or I don't know if I'm going to make it to 6 months from now. But so it was just one of those things where, I do have a big group of friends, but I had to pick my 3 core plus my cousin, to kind of just like open up and just say like, yo, what do I do? And then from there, it was just like kind of talking about some of the stuff I was going through. My mind was very busy. I was like, I had to do this, had to do that, and do this, that I forgot to take a step back and just like, take a mental break for myself. And apparently, if your wife is having a tough pregnancy, so for all the new dads that are, or about to be new dads that are out there, and your wife is going through a tough pregnancy, whether it be they're bedridden or you got to take a lot of the initiatives for them. Just know that when the baby comes, you got to take a break, because dads that have to go through that are very high in postpartum depression and anxiety. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that till after it happened. And then I started looking it up. And then from there, it kind of opened up more doors for me to feel comfortable with talking to other dads about, when they had their baby. Like, how are you feeling? Because no one ever asks how dads are doing. Right? Oh. Everyone's just like, how's mom, how's baby? But it has to be a normal conversation now where people that are parents and not parents just, always ask how the dads are doing.
Yeah, that's interesting, because until you said that, I didn't think postpartum like happened to the dads. But if you're there in this new stressful situation, plus you're working so hard and you're up every time she's up, you're doing everything she's doing, like that can take a toll on you. So that's like, yeah, because for me, like, I didn't have like depression or anything at the beginning. I felt like, because I don't know if I was just so busy or whatever, but later on it hit where I was like, I think just too much isolation, too much time by myself with just the kids' events. Like, here or there, I'd see my friends and they'd be like, hey, like, why don't you come out? Yeah. And it's like, some friends would be like, oh, we understand, man. Like, you're doing your dad thing, right? But other friends are like, well, we don't see you. We see you like once every 6 months, right? And it's like, because I'm so hands-on, but that takes its toll. And then I was like kind of having like a depression kind of thing where I was like, hey, I need to start getting balance, because when you don't have balance is when things can go out of control. Like, you got to have time for yourself. You got to have time for friends and your kids and family, and just make that balance. Because when it gets out of order, I think that's when you're more susceptible to kind of get into depression or get into that downward spiral.
Yeah, and I think postpartum can go from 0 months all the way to 3. So, like with you saying it didn't happen right away, but I felt like this time after, like, years or months after. So that's the one thing that one of my instructors was telling us, that postpartum doesn't necessarily come right away. Because for me, it didn't come right away. It came about like 6 months in, because it was also me not changing my schedule a bit. Like, I was up every day at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. And then at that time, I was starting a sneaker event. So I would go to meetings and I would meet with clients. And, for my print business, I was always meeting up with clients and trying to do everything the same before having the baby that, everything hit me so hard that one day I just laid there and I was like, I fucking don't want to do this anymore. And it was like, it wasn't like I quit, but it was like, it was dark. It was definitely
overwhelmed. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah.
You made no adjustment. You just kept plowing away, but you had to add this huge thing of being a father on top of it.
And I was scared to tell, my wife. I was scared to tell her. Because, again, in my mindset, it's like, what the hell did you do? You didn't push a baby out. You didn't do this. But it was, like, one of those things where, fuck, we got married for a reason. And my cousin said that, too. He's like, yo, you got married for a reason. And it's not, safe for you to just keep all of this quiet. So he kind of just was like, you just got to tell your boys and let them know. Because if you just hold it in, it's going to go darker. But if you open up to your wife too, there's gonna be a little bit of light, because then she'll know. Because she was even wondering, she's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, I'm all right. Same old.
Typical man response.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm a little tired.
I'm good. How about you?
You want a beer?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like that for me, we're talking about dark places, but that for me was like the dark. That was a very dark time. And I at the age of 12 to 15, 16, I went through anxiety and depression. I did need, I didn't get any medication for it, but I did have a little bit of help for it. So, it was amplified. It came back because I grew up, I was able to, if I knew it, I felt a certain way, I knew what I had to do to alleviate it. But it was like, fuck, I didn't feel like this for X amount of years. And then it amplified after having a baby. But your mindset was still work. Your mindset was take care of this child, take care of your wife.
Grind.
Yeah.
Keep going. Right. We're not taught to take a step back, right? Because in our society, no one judges you on your failures, or no one judges you on your success. They judge you on your failures. So no one ever wants to fail, right? I think the best thing you could tell the next generation, it's okay to fail, right? Because through our failures is how we learn, how we adapt, right? How we grow. If you fail 100 times, that should be 100 different lessons right there, right? You don't look at it as 100 losses, right? It's 100 opportunities to get better. And without, if you're constantly always winning, you don't learn anything, right? It's like that kid whose parents are always like, oh, I let him win board games and all this other shit, right? Till that kid goes to school and he gets his ass handed to him at kickball. And then he's just like, fuck just happened, right?
Yeah, he can't regulate himself after that.
Exactly.
I do that exact same thing. Before, I would let him win sometimes, right? And win, because I do want him to taste victory. You want him to taste that feeling, but you don't want to just let him run you over every time, and then he cries when he loses at school. Yeah. But the failure thing is one thing that I teach my son so much. I've taught him lessons since he was 3 years old about failing, how it's okay, right? I tell him I don't fail, right? I don't make mistakes. I learn lessons, right? So that's what I get out of it. I remember I wanted him to read at a grade 3 level when he was in kindergarten. So before that, and the whole thing about it was just teaching him, because I wanted him to fail, right? I wanted him to see that this book was so hard and to fail and achieve it. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy you a Nintendo Switch when you can read this book. And it was a grade 3 level book, right? And we would read it and we would practice it. And he's like, it's so hard. And we didn't just straight up read the book. We did other things to step up to it. Yep. But he wanted to quit. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted him to get to the point where he was about to quit. And then I'm like, no, we can't quit. You're going to keep doing it. One day this book's going to be easy. And he kept going at it. And then 3 months in to kindergarten, he was reading at a grade 3 level. And then in grade 3, which he's in now, he reads at a grade 6 level. But I showed him that book again, shortly after. And I was like, read this book to me. And he forgot and he read it. And he's like, this book's so easy. I'm like, you see, this book is the book that I made you read for the Switch. And now it's so easy. So things are hard at the beginning, but they get easy.
That's awesome.
So failure is a good thing. You're going to learn and get better. So I always want to teach him that.
Yeah. I saw a meme this week where it's one of those gym memes where they say, today's PR is tomorrow's warm-ups, right? Because that's what it is. It's you got to push yourself to those breaking points, and then eventually it just gets easier.
So I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow then.
Yeah. I'll see you there. All right, man. What's going on in your personal life, if you don't mind us asking? We talked about your entrepreneurship, you being a single father. fuck, man, you're all yoked up and shit. You're pretty cute guy. Like, what's going on in the personal life?
Trying to get my number?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, personal life's going pretty good now. I mean, now I'm having a bit more of a balance. I still got to make more time for friends and make more of an effort to reach out and do that, because I'm not the best at doing that right now, but I have an amazing girlfriend right now who's come in and just like amazing to my son. Like, she's with him right now, nice, watching him while I'm here. So personal life's good, family's good. I don't have too much outside of that, just trying to get the balance right now. So just living like that. Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything you're working on? Anything exciting that you're looking forward to?
Anything you want to plug in?
Yeah. Pretty much just not really too many things. Like, my business is just the main thing, trying to help other traders kind of do what I've done and just reach out. And maybe if people can hear my story and it can help somebody, then yeah, but not really anything I really want to plug. So, yeah.
Cool.
Do you have anything you want to plug, RJ?
I got nothing, man. I'm too busy being stay-at-home dad and loving it. Yeah, how about you, Albert?
Yeah, just chilling.
Just chilling. This guy's got so many things on the go.
I'm not about to plug now that you guys did.
I mean, there are stuff happening with business and stuff, but nothing that I could really say yet, just because contracts were just signed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, be on the lookout. Hopefully, a sneaker show.
Do-rag dads.
Do-rag dads coming soon.
Do-rag dads coming soon, man. Coming soon. Waves coming soon.
You gotta get that Z.
Oh, yo, I got a cut today, and they're like, you ever thought about getting waves? I'm like, not once have I ever thought about getting waves.
Told you, if you need any of the curling activator and stuff, all that, I know it. I got it to my house.
Like, you look really good with a perm. Right now, have you ever thought of switching that up?
Yeah,
Like,
yo, man, my son just got a perm.
Oh,
like,
like Jerry curl perm? Or like,
yeah, like.
Yo, when my hair's not pulled back right now, it's a Jerry curl perm right now.
Oh my goodness, that kid's probably a G.
Yo, it's like, it's the latest fad with like kids these days. Everyone's getting a perm, and he's 8.
My nephew just got one too.
Yeah,
like yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my nephew in Winnipeg got a perm yesterday.
It's crazy.
Wow, I didn't know that was the trend.
Yeah, my dad's like, "Oh, what are you up to today?" I'm like, "I'm taking Nico to get a perm," and he's just like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, just wait."
Yo, so I still remember when I told my parents I was getting a perm, and my mom just looked at me like, "You good?" My dad was just like,
"Is this postpartum?"
But I've been perming my hair for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Like, that's how long I've been perming my hair now. So when I was getting my perm done from this little Vietnamese lady that does mine at the Crossfields farmers market, her name's Wendy.
Hold on, wait. You get your hair permed at a farmer's market?
Bro, she's the best. I used to get mine done from Bless at Second Mile Barbershop.
Yeah.
But then they told me to go see Wendy. And then I started getting my hair permed by her, and she's been doing it for almost like 10 years now.
She's at a farmer's market.
Crazy.
Yeah,
so
bro.
does she like sell you strawberries and stuff too?
No, like at the farmer's market, they all have their own booth.
She's like, "Oh, there's
right?
your 10th stab. Here's your kombucha. We'll see you next week."
But she's been perming it for so long that when I saw her in August or July or something like that, she's like, "What's with all the Filipino boys? They're all perming their hair nowadays."
Bro, if you go
what did you tell them? I'm like, I didn't tell them anything.
If you go to a basketball game, I guarantee you there's going to be at least a handful of Asian kids with permed hair.
Yeah, she told me like
crazy.
her perming, like she had to up her perming solution and stuff.
Yeah.
She's like, "Have you been telling your friends about me?" I'm like, "Well, I told a couple, but I don't think they ever got permed. Like a lot of them are like balding, so I don't know. Like, I don't know what they're perming." But she was like telling me, she's like, "Yeah, a whole bunch of Filipino kids have been going to see her now to get their hair permed."
Yo, it's crazy. Like, these kids are in high school getting their hair permed, getting like full tattooed sleeves, like 16-year-olds walking around with tattooed sleeves.
I get confused with that because when I watch basketball highlights, I'm like, this kid's not 18.
Yeah,
like he's what?
Yeah, like they got their calves done up, their thighs done up, and you're like, "How old are you?" "I'm 14. I'm like, "What?"
Okay, but if you think about a perm, if you were to go back to high school, especially like the eras that we all grew up in, and you're like, "I'm getting a perm."
I'm actually surprised not more people got perms when we were younger.
Really?
Just I grew up in, well, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I grew up in like 90s hip hop.
Perms are big though.
Well, yeah, perms are big back then. But if I were to say I was gonna go get a perm back then,
yeah,
like
Suspect.
My boys would be like, "Yo, you good?"
Yeah.
You can't say you're getting the perm. You just got to show up with it. 'Cause then you're gonna
Yeah.
have to.
But
Explain,
even that,
right?
they're just like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, who did your hair, Sally?
No, it was Wendy at the farmer's market. Oh, man.
Yeah,
Good?
I'm good. I got a
Alright.
question for you though.
Shoot.
You know, I've been really craving this fruit. You know the green cantaloupes. What are they called again?
Honeydew.
Honeydew, these nuts fit in your mouth.
Fuck, so stupid. Stupid. All right, cut.
All right, guys, that's our show.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for checking out the, I guess, second episode.
Second episode.
Of Dope Dads. Thank you
Durag
again-
Dads coming soon.
Thank you again to Adam for. I was gonna say Ryan. Thank you again
Everybody always
to
says that.
Adam, Kevin, Ryan.
Adam,
Pick
Kevin,
one.
Ryan for checking out our show. Yeah.
Thanks to Ham. Thanks to
to
Luna
Ham.
Studios. You want to sponsor us? We're looking for sponsorships. I like cannabis, so